why so many years after the Cold War, Americans are so much afraid of the word socialism?
Well, I think, because so much of the discussion in this country is framed by a media that is constantly, has never stopped red baiting, has never stopped, I don't know how you translate that, but it's interesting though, because for many years, just being called a liberal was an insult, right? I mean, it was, oh, you're a liberal, and that was an insult. Now, the discourse has changed. The country is moving to the left. So in order to insult you, they have to call you a socialist. So maybe soon you'll have to be Marxist-Leninist. I don't know. But things are changing, and that's because the corporate media really doesn't reflect this country. I think the frightening thing to me is that there is so much anger at the inequality, at the alliance between business and the government that people see so graphically with the bank bailout, that anger is going to go somewhere, right? I mean, the anger is real. Every poll shows it. People feel that they're being ripped off. They know something really is rotten. And because there is no left in this country, there's only the Democratic Party, which is fully within that system. And you see this totally seamless transition from the Bush administration's version of the bailout to the Obama administration's bailout. I mean, it's even the same people. Timothy Geithner was working at the New York Federal Reserve, moves over, and now he's at Treasury. So it's even the same people. And so because of that, the people in this country who are angry, the only one who seems to be speaking to them is Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, these very, very right-wing, angry white men.
You're very critical of Obama's stimulus plan. Why?
Well, I mean, first of all, the bailout for the banks, the bailout for Wall Street, and the stimulus for the real economy need to be working together. My criticism is that they are treated as completely separate, that you can save the financial sector and then you can help people, but you don't need to be having these projects coordinated. And the situation that we were talking about in New York was this one factory where you really saw exactly how this communication is broken down, which was this factory in Chicago, Republic Windows and Doors, where this factory, which theoretically could be producing the goods for the new green economy, which is what Obama was elected promising to create green jobs. That factory was shut down. The workers were thrown out of work because Bank of America refused to loan them money. Bank of America has received $45 billion in government money. And so all I'm saying, and I think that Brazilians will understand this very well, having been in debt to the International Monetary Fund for many, many years, when you're handing out billions of dollars, if you're Washington, you can attach any conditions you want. Look at the way the International Monetary Fund has treated countries around the world. In my opinion, the conditions that they attached were absolutely the wrong conditions. But to me, it's scandalous that you would give money, $45 billion to Bank of America, and not say you have to keep these factories open. You can do anything. And that, to me, is the frustration, because I think Obama, this moment, has such potential to take a crisis and transform it into addressing the real problems, the root problems, not just patching it up, getting the casino running with taxpayer dollars again, but actually fixing the problems.
Oh, that's a good time to bring the shock doctrine. We have a crisis.
Yes.
What is the shock doctrine, and how does Obama presidency fit into your theory?
Yeah. What I mean by the shock doctrine is the way the right uses crisis to overcome democracy, to go against the wishes of people. Obama is in a very different situation. There is a crisis. This crisis is widely and popularly understood as having been created by neoliberal economics, by deregulating the financial sector, and by basically laissez-faire economics. That was the consensus during the election, and that's why Obama won. He was losing before, once the crisis hit, and he started using that language, using that discourse, he started gaining, and he eventually won. And he won with a mandate to respond to the crisis by changing the energy system, transportation system, addressing the education crisis. But because of this system in Washington, where the lobbyists are so powerful, he is not using this crisis to actually abide by democracy. That's not an example of the shock doctrine, by the way. The shock doctrine, I am so clear in the book, many times, that it is not about whether or not you respond to a crisis with boldness. You must. Especially a crisis that was created by an ideology. Of course you have to respond to a crisis. Most of the crises we face are trying to tell us something. It's, maybe it's a hurricane, and the fact that we have more and more increasingly intense climactic moments like this, it's because of climate change. So you don't ignore it, you actually have to respond to it. What I'm against is using the crisis to go against people's wishes. There's absolutely nothing wrong with responding to a crisis by doing exactly what you were elected to do.
There is good shock and bad shock.
Look, the shocks are happening. It's not a question of whether...
And you also define the state of shock in your book.
It's a question of whether or not you respond to the shock by saying, people stand back, the experts are in charge, we don't want to hear what you have to say, and we're going to push through our unpopular policies anyway. And I show in the book how that was done in New Orleans after the hurricane hit, and the public housing was never reopened. People are now being evicted from their homes for the second time. They're being evicted from their trailers.
Well, you give several examples.
Many examples,
Very well researched, by the way. Then you include Bolivia, you include Poland.
But my fear with the Obama administration is that this is going to happen again, because this bailout is so flawed and so expensive. The cost of saving the banks has been transferred to the public, who have paid the bill. And now we're already hearing this push. Well, we have to privatize pensions. We can't afford Medicaid anymore.
You don't like corporations, globalization, capitalism, free trade?
They're all the same thing. You're just naming the same thing in different ways. I like lots of things.
Globalization.
No, it's another one. Those are synonyms. Come up with one that's not the same one.
Canadianism.
I like Canadianism.
What I'm trying to get is there a country that has found
the right balance?
A right balance, that have found solutions that are humane and successful?